today I just wanted to take a little bit of time to talk about bookkeeping as a habit, or why bookkeeping is a habit. So I was reading Atomic Habits by James Clear, and I was thinking about different habits that you might do and ways that you might implement the book. And I also thought that if January is the perfect time for personal goals and personal habits, then maybe new financial year is the perfect time for financial goals and financial habits. And as one of them, I'm going to say that bookkeeping and business are two things that will always go together. Even if you outsource your bookkeeping, you still have to make sure things are going where they need to go. You still have to make sure your bookkeeper's doing the right thing. So really, you're never going to be able to completely avoid bookkeeping. There are ways to make it less stressful. There are ways to make it more manageable, but it's still always going to be part of your business if you are running a business. So how would we implement some of what James Clear says into our bookkeeping and business? So I picked on three of the things he says, so three of his laws, and I'll give you some ideas on how you might use some of that information to make your bookkeeping more of a habit. So the first one he said is to make it obvious. So the more obvious something is, the more cues there are in your environment, the more likely you are to remember that you need to do your bookkeeping. So is that a particular place where you go to put your receipts? Is that a cue? You know, that particular folder, that particular drawer? Is that where you store your documents and receipts until processing time? Here's a tricky one. What about making your internet homepage your bookkeeping? So if you use Xero or QuickBooks or Wave, maybe you could set that as your homepage. So every time you open your internet browser, you're presented with your bookkeeping software. So you might just be like, oh, I've got a few minutes. I can just log on and do a little bit of something. What about appointments? We all know how useful appointments are in our calendars to remind us to do things. So maybe it's set aside, I don't know, half an hour on a Wednesday morning to deal with your bookkeeping. Now, all these things about making it obvious, it's just that reminder, and then you'll get into the habit when you see that reminder or that prompt that you will go in and do your bookkeeping. And now the second thing James suggests is make it easy. And I know that easy and bookkeeping don't go together for everybody, but there are ways you can make the process easier. So the first one, if you aren't using a software system that would honestly change how well your bookkeeping works and reduce the amount of manual things you actually have to do. So if you're using a spreadsheet, there's no managing a spreadsheet when you're using bookkeeping software. The software will do that for you. The second one is just batch your tasks, and I think that makes things much easier. So if you have a stack of receipts, rather than processing one start to finish, why not just take the photos together? Then when you've batch photoed everything, then do the batch allocation. So you're just breaking tasks down. So you're doing that repetitive motion, and you don't have to switch tasks as much in your brain. And then the last suggestion for making it easy is to do really small amounts of time. So the thing I see with people when they do bookkeeping is they try to do everything. They try to do it all at once. They leave it until the last minute or, the last month, the last hour. And then they try to do everything, and they're trying to switch between tasks, and they're trying to switch between information, and they're trying to bring everything together all at once. And that's what makes it overwhelming for them. So if you just try to do 2 minutes a day, that's 12 hours a year, just doing one tiny little task each time. So Monday you might be doing receipts, Tuesday might be doing invoices, Wednesday might be chasing things, Thursday might be doing allocations. So you're just breaking those tasks down to be as easy as they could possibly be, and you're just doing 2 minutes. Everybody's got 2 minutes. And then the third thing that I've covered in on the blog and video this week is make it satisfying. And this is going to be the one where people laugh the most, even if, they can see that for some people bookkeeping is easy, but would you really think that bookkeeping could be satisfying? Well, it's not always the task itself that's got to be satisfying. So if you create a reward to go with the task or the habit, and you make that reward satisfying, then eventually your brain will associate drinking wine, eating chocolate, with the habit. So if your habit is bookkeeping, maybe don't go overboard with the reward if you've just done 2 minutes, but that might just be reading a chapter in a book that you enjoy, or tying it to another habit that you like. So if you If you like searching on Etsy for a specific item that you always wanted. So vintage, I have this thing for a vintage coffee grinder, Peugeot one specifically. So, you know, occasionally I'll go onto Etsy and search for it. Maybe I can tie that searching in on Etsy with doing a little bit of bookkeeping. So the searching on Etsy is my reward for doing the bookkeeping. And then something else in the book is reframing what you have to do to what you get to do. So rather than you have to do bookkeeping, reframe that to just being one process of the fact that you get to run a business. You're privileged to be able to run a business, and part of that business is bookkeeping. So they're my tips for this week. Bookkeeping is a habit. How can you make your habit easier, more satisfying, and more obvious? And head to the book for some more tips, including how to deal with your bad habits and how to really amplify small changes over time.